A man once stood over my friend on a curb and kept asking her something. He never asked me once. I was standing close enough to touch him, and I said no to him 3 separate times, out loud, in a normal voice. Nothing happened to her. Nothing happened to me. We got in a car, we went home, and she doesn't remember most of it. I remember all of it, and she has only ever heard the polite version. This is the other one. We worked the same place, a small cafe with an evening license. Food till 9 and wine till late. Closing was the best part of the shift. Music up, chairs on tables, everybody suddenly funny at midnight. That night we finished about 11:30 and had 1 drink each with the kitchen, and then the 2 of us walked back to hers because she lived 12 minutes away and I lived 20 minutes past her. She'd done a double. She hadn't eaten since about 2 in the afternoon, and halfway home the whole day caught up with her at once, the way it does. So she sat down on the steps outside her building with her back against the door and went that particular gray color and said, "Give me 5 minutes." I rang her brother because he lived out past the retail park and he never sleeps, and he said he'd come. 15 minutes, 20 at the outside, and that was fine. That was completely fine. It was a normal street, cars parked down both sides, lights on in maybe 4 windows, and I sat on the step next to her with my coat over the 2 of us, and we waited. I heard him before I saw him. Footsteps coming up the pavement at a perfectly normal pace from the direction of the corner shop. A man in his 40s, maybe 50, dark jacket, nothing in his hands, nothing over his shoulder. The kind of man who is on every street at midnight and means absolutely nothing. He slowed as he got level with us and said, "Is she all right?" And he sounded genuinely concerned, because that is exactly what people sound like when they are genuinely concerned. I said, "She's fine, thanks, long day." And he said, "I'm just there. The blue door. Let me get her inside, she can lie down a bit. I'll put the kettle on, you can wait with her." And I said, "That's really kind of you, but her brother's on his way. We're all right." And that should have been the end of it. That is where that conversation ends, on any street, with any person. Instead, he did something I still think about, and at the time it barely registered because it looked like kindness. He bent down, not to me, to her. He put his hands on his knees and got his face down level with hers, the way you'd talk to somebody in a hospital bed. And he changed his voice, softer, slower, warmer than anything he'd used on me. He said, "You're freezing, aren't you? You'd be so much better lying down. It's 2 minutes." And she made a noise, not a word, a noise. Her eyes were half shut and her head was on my shoulder. And I said it again, "No thank you, we're fine." And he was already on to the next bit of it. That's when I started to feel it in my hands. Because he was talking about me, to her. He said, "Your friend's just being careful. That's all right, she doesn't have to come in. Your friend can wait out here." And I want to be clear about the tone. There was nothing nasty in it. He wasn't arguing with me. He wasn't even irritated with me. He was working around me, the way you work around a chair that's in the wrong place. And while he was doing it, he moved. I only worked that out afterwards, going back over it. He'd started on the pavement facing us both, a good 6 feet off. And by then, he was crouched on her other side, at the bottom of the steps, with me and a coat between him and nothing at all, and her nearest hand nearest to him. He never came at me, not once. He just kept getting lower and kinder and closer, one polite sentence at a time. And the street stayed completely empty. Nobody passing, nobody at a window, and the 2 of us at the bottom of her steps. And then she said, "Okay." She didn't say it to anybody, really. She was half asleep and freezing, and somebody had asked her a gentle question 4 times. It came out as one syllable, and it wasn't even finished before his hand was under her elbow. And that is the second I understood what I've been standing in for 6 minutes. He had never once been trying to talk me around. He'd been waiting for her. Every no I gave him went straight up into the air, and every question he had went down to the one person on that street who couldn't answer one. I got up. I don't remember deciding to. I got my arm under her other side and stood her up, and I put myself between the two of them, and I said something very loud and very rude that I would never normally say to a stranger. And he let go. Not quickly. There was about half a second where his hand stayed exactly where it was, and mine was on her wrist, and then he let go and straightened up and stepped back. And he wasn't embarrassed. I keep coming back to that one thing. A man is caught with his hand on a stranger in the street, and he isn't embarrassed. He stood on the pavement about 10 feet off with his hands at his sides, and he looked at us and he said nothing for a long time. I don't know how long enough that I could hear myself breathing. And then he leaned round me, not past me. He physically moved his head to one side to see her, the way you look round somebody blocking a doorway. And he said, "You know where I am." And that was the sentence that put my stomach on the floor, because she had never known where he was, and neither did I. Headlights came round the top of the road. Her brother, doing about 40 on a residential street, which I have never once complained about since. And the man went. But he didn't turn and walk off. He went backwards for the first few steps, still facing us, and then he turned and walked up the pavement at exactly the same pace he'd come down it, like a man finishing a conversation. And he did not go to a blue door. He didn't go to any door. He walked to the end of the road. I got her into the back of the car and got in beside her, and her brother did the thing brothers do where he asked what happened 3 times and didn't listen to any of the answers. And at the top of the road, we turned right past the corner, and he was standing there. Not walking, standing, on the corner, side on to the main road, facing back down the street we just left, looking at the steps. He'd gone 80 yards and stopped, and he was waiting to see whether a car had actually been coming. I did think about ringing somebody. I got as far as working out what I'd say. A man offered to help my friend inside, and I said no, and he left. He didn't threaten anybody, he didn't take anything, and he was polite the entire time. That's the whole report. 2 things came later. The first is that there is no blue door on that street. There's a blue gate at the back of the shops that goes into the bin yard, and nobody has ever lived behind it. The second is her. She doesn't remember him, or me shouting, or her brother arriving. The only thing she has kept from that night is that somebody asked her something twice, very kindly, and that she said yes. She still doesn't know what she said yes to, and I've never told her. I'm not frightened of that street. We still work the same closes, and we still walk home, and most nights it's the nicest part of the shift. What I took from it cost me about 10 minutes. When somebody I'm with isn't in a state to make a decision, I don't hand them the decision. Not once, not to be nice, not to get out of an argument. I make it and I say it out loud, and I stay boring about it until whoever's asking gets bored first. And I don't leave people at the bottom of their own steps anymore. I go up with them, and I stand there until I hear the lock go, and then I walk home. It's 10 extra minutes of my night. I know exactly what that's worth, because a very kind man on a dark pavement once spent 6 of them trying to buy her off me, one polite question at a time. The most useful thing I have ever done in my life took about 11 seconds, and I did it in a launderette car park on a Sunday afternoon in socks and sliders with wet hands. I've never been able to tell it properly at a table, because when you say it out loud, it is a man in a car offering somebody a job. That's it. That's the story. No injuries, no crime, 11 seconds of talking. And I have thought about that car park more or less every week for 11 years. Our machine had gone, so I was doing a fortnight's washing in a launderette on the end of a little parade of shops. Chemist, barber, launderette, in a unit that had been empty since I moved into the area. It is the most boring place on earth, and I quite like it. Big window across the whole front, 6 machines, 4 dryers, plastic chairs, 1 strip light out. And the noise, that's the bit that matters. 4 dryers going is a wall of sound. You cannot hear anything from outside that building. A car door, a shout, a horn, none of it reaches you in there. Nothing does. There were maybe 4 of us in and out that afternoon. The one I remember is a lad who was always in on a Sunday, in his 20s, headphones on, folding everything into squares like somebody had taught him properly. We'd nodded at each other for about a year and never said one word. I had a dryer with 26 minutes on it and nothing to read, and there is nothing to look at in a launderette except the car park. So I looked at the car park. That is the entire reason any of this happened. I was bored and there was a window. The car had been there when I arrived. Silver, nothing car, nose out in the far corner by the empty unit, where you'd park if you didn't want anybody walking past your window. And there was somebody in it. You could see the shape of a head against the light. I didn't think a thing about it. People sit in cars. People wait for people. But a wash is 50 minutes and a dryer is 2 goes of 30. And about the second time I looked up and did the arithmetic, I realized that car had been in that corner longer than I'd been awake to it. And in all that time, not one door had opened. So I did what you do when you're bored, which is start watching properly. And once you're watching properly, you can't stop. Nobody got out for a cigarette. Nobody got out to stretch their legs. Nobody came out of the chemist and got in. The window never came down once. And here's the thing I noticed and then explained away inside about 4 seconds. The car wasn't parked facing the shops. It was parked facing the launderette door. And I told myself he was waiting for his wife, because that is what I tell myself, and it is nearly always true. Then the lad finished, folded the last thing, stacked it, picked up his basket, said something to the woman on the machines, and went out the door. And he turned left, along the front of the parade, towards the road, which took him right across the corner. And the window of the silver car came down. I saw the glass drop, and I did not hear one single syllable of anything that came after it, because I was 8 feet away behind plate glass with 4 dryers running. The lad stopped. He had his headphones round his neck by then, and he turned towards the car, and he put his head forward, and even from where I was standing, I knew the shape of that. That is the shape of sorry, what? And he took a step in. And then he did it again, leaned in, said something, and took another step. And then a third time. Whatever was being said to that boy was being said so quietly that he had to keep walking over to collect it. I started counting his feet because there was nothing else in that car park to count. He'd started about 8 feet off the door, which is where you stand when a stranger talks to you out of a car. Then 5. Then he put his basket down on the tarmac. And that is the one that got me out of my chair, honestly, because nobody puts clean washing down on wet ground to answer a question about directions. You put it down when you've decided you're staying a while. Then his hand went flat on the roof, and he bent at the waist, and his head went inside the line of the window. And then I saw the exhaust. It was cold enough that afternoon to see it. This little wobble of air coming off the back of the car. And I knew it had not been there before. Because I had been staring at the back of that car for the best part of an hour, and nothing had ever come out of it. The engine was off the whole time he sat there. The engine went on while that boy was walking over. I went out. No plan, no phone. That was in my bag on a plastic chair. I put my shoulder into the door and walked straight across that car park. And I said loudly in the flattest voice I own, "Come away from the car." And I said it to the lad, not to the driver. I never said one word to the driver. Not that afternoon, not ever. The lad stood up and looked at me like I'd lost my mind and started saying something about a band. But I'd stopped looking at him because I was close enough now to see into the car. And the face in there was not the face of a man caught being a bit odd. There was no embarrassment in it, and there was no fear in it. What was happening to that man was that something was being taken off him. I've watched people watch a screen go black with an afternoon's work on it. It was that, and every bit of it came round onto me. Not the lad. He'd stopped existing about a second earlier. The window went up, and I got the best look I ever got at him through the glass on its way, for about a second and a half, and he was doing something with his eyes that I can only describe as putting me somewhere. Not glaring, filing. Then the glass closed, and the reflection of the sky came over it, and he was gone. And I was standing in a car park in wet socks next to a very confused young man who was telling me about drums. And then he didn't drive off. That's the part everybody gets wrong when I tell it. They assume he sped away. He sat there, engine running, windows up, in the corner by the empty unit, for about another 20 minutes. I took the lad back inside, and the two of us stood at that window like a pair of idiots watching a parked car. And I got my phone out and stood there with it in my hand, and I worked out exactly what I was going to say. There is a man sitting in a car in a public car park. He isn't doing anything. He offered somebody a job. I put the phone back in my bag, and at some point he pulled out and indicated and left, like anybody. The lad told me what had actually been said, and every word of it was completely reasonable, which is precisely why he'd kept walking towards it. The man ran the music at a church out past the ring road. Their drummer had gone. He'd been driving around asking people, because you can't advertise for that, you have to just ask. There'd be a bit of money in it. Did he play anything? Every one of those is a sentence a real human being says, and none of it bothered me. What bothered me was that he said all of it at a volume you had to walk into. He'd given the lad the name of the place, so I looked it up on my phone before my dryer finished. It exists. Real church, real hall, real band, and a photograph of the man who runs the music. Gray beard, 60s, glasses. Nothing like the man in that car. So he hadn't made anything up. He'd borrowed it, which means somebody had told him about it, or he'd read it somewhere, and he'd been carrying it round in the car with him, ready to go. And I have never once managed to believe that Sunday was the first time he used it. I still go to that launderette. Different chair now, if I'm honest. I sit where I can see the door. And I've got one rule out of the whole thing, and it's a stupid little rule, and I've never broken it. If somebody talks to me from inside a car, I don't move. I stay exactly where I am, and I say, "Sorry, I can't hear you." And if they still can't be heard from where I'm standing, then they can get out of the car and come and say it to me. That's the whole thing. That's all of it. It makes me look rude about twice a year, and rude is a price I pay happily. And the lad, he was in there every Sunday for years afterwards, and we never once talked about it. But he stopped wearing the headphones outside. I noticed that. I've been quietly pleased about it ever since. There are 4 words I have said out loud to a stranger 3 times in my life. The first time was on a pedestrian crossing at about 20 to 1 in the morning, and I very nearly didn't say them because everything I could see was telling me it was none of my business. I wasn't in any danger, Nobody followed me, nobody threatened me, nobody laid a finger on me. I just happened to be walking home from work on the one night it mattered which way I went. I was a kitchen porter and then a commis at a place in town, and I did the close, which means you finish somewhere between 12:30 and 1, and everything is shut, and the buses have stopped, and you walk. 25 minutes for me, and I went the same way every night, up past the retail units, over the junction by the 24-hour shop, then residential all the way in. It's the long way round. I went that way because it's lit, street lights the whole run, and the shop, which is the only thing open for a mile, and has a window you can see into. That night, one of the waitresses walked as far as the junction with me because she got picked up from the garage forecourt on the other side. We did that most nights, 2 of us complaining about the same 8 people for a quarter of an hour. So I wasn't on my own, which turned out to matter more than anything else about that night. The junction is a big flat crossroads with a proper crossing on the near side. 4 lanes, a filter, the shop on the corner. In the day, it's horrible. At that time of night, it's just a lot of empty tarmac with lights changing for nobody. And there was somebody on the crossing. A woman, on foot, with 2 carrier bags. And a white saloon, one of those cars every third person drives, sitting half on the crossing with the driver's window down. And my actual first thought, and I'm not proud of it, was, oh, they're having a row. Because that is exactly what it looked like. The car was up close, the man in it was leaning over towards the passenger side and talking up at her, and she was walking. Nobody ever sat me down and taught me it, but I knew it anyway. A couple arguing in the street is a door you do not open. We got maybe 20 yards closer and it happened again. She got round the front of the car and started up the far side of the crossing, and the car came forward and put itself in front of her a second time. Not fast, walking pace. He never once touched the horn. And he was talking the whole way through it. Come on, get in. Don't be like this. It's freezing out here. Tired, reasonable, patient. The exact voice of a man who has had a long night with somebody he loves. And we discussed it. That's the part I'm least proud of, and it's the part that matters most. She said, "Is that all right, do you think?" And I said, "I think they're together." And she said, "Yeah," and we kept walking. The 2 of us had looked directly at it twice, and the 2 of us had put it in a drawer marked "not ours." And the reason we did that was not that we're cowards. The reason we did it is that the thing had a name on it. It was a row. Rows happen, and you walk past them. What changed it was the bags. She'd had one in each hand when I first saw her. By the time we were level with the shop, both bags were in the hand nearest the car. Both of them, on that side, between her body and the door. Nobody carries shopping like that. It is the most awkward way there is to carry 2 bags. You only do it if you want something in the way. And the other thing was the silence. In 8 or 9 minutes of that, I never heard her say one single word back to him. Then the passenger door opened. He didn't get out. He leaned across and knocked it open with the flat of his hand and left it swinging, and it stopped about halfway, sticking out into the road. And she went round the back of the car. Not the front where the open door was, the back, out into 4 live lanes at 1 in the morning with the lights green for traffic, to get further from an open door than she was from the road. And that was when my legs went funny, because a woman having an argument with her boyfriend does not do that. We crossed. I don't remember agreeing to it. I remember stepping off the curb and hearing her come with me. And getting close to that car was one of the strangest physical things I've ever done. Because right up until we were about 6 feet off it, it was still just a bloke in a car. Ordinary face, ordinary jacket, both hands where you'd expect them. Nothing you could point at. Nothing that would sound like anything at all if you said it out loud afterwards. And the two of us walked into the gap between the front of that car and where she was standing, and stopped there. And I asked the question, not to him. That is the only clever thing I have ever done in my life, and I didn't do it on purpose. I turned my back on him. Completely, I put my back to the car, and I looked at her, and I said, "Do you know him?" 4 words. And I have thought a lot about why I said it that way round, and the honest answer is that if I'd asked him, he would have had an answer ready, and I would have believed it. She said no, straight away. No pause, no look at him first, nothing. And then she said the rest of it in one go, quite quietly, and her voice was completely level, which somehow made it far worse. I've never seen that man before tonight. He's been doing this since the roundabout. The roundabout is 400 yards back down that road. There are 2 side streets and a bus stop between there and where the 4 of us were standing, which means that by the time we ambled up having our little conversation about whether it was our business, it had already been going on for about 10 minutes. And I turned around and looked at him, and the tired boyfriend came off his face like a coat coming off. Not into panic, that's the thing. I had braced for panic, shouting, or the engine, or the door. What I got was irritation. Flat, ordinary, put-out irritation. The exact face of a man being told the job has to be done again. He looked at me for about 2 seconds, with an expression I have only ever otherwise seen across a kitchen pass at 4 o'clock on a Saturday, and there was nothing behind it at all. The waitress had her phone up by then, held out straight, obviously filming, no attempt to hide it. He never looked at it once. He leaned over and pulled the passenger door properly shut, and sat back and checked his mirror, and indicated, and pulled off the crossing, and went down towards the roundabout at about 25 miles an hour. Didn't rev it, didn't spin a wheel, didn't touch the plate, didn't do anything about the plate at all. He just left. The way you leave a car park when you've decided against the shop. We walked with her. She didn't ask us to, and we didn't offer. The 3 of us just started walking. And 2 streets in, she said the thing that took the whole night apart from me. She'd seen that car before. 40 minutes earlier, in the car park of the shop, while she was inside it. She'd clocked it because it was parked away from the lights, with somebody sitting in it, and she'd thought nothing of it whatsoever. And she'd come out with her bags and started walking. The crossing wasn't where it began. The crossing was just where the road got quiet enough. Her flat was over a hairdresser's about 12 minutes in. She thanked us about 9 times, in that embarrassed way people do when something has been too big for the words. And I gave her my number in case anybody needed anything from us. She texted 2 days later. She'd reported it. She'd handed over the video, which is 40 seconds of a dark road, a white car, and a number plate that is 4 gray smudges. Nobody ever came back to her, and nobody ever rang me, and I understand why, and it still sits badly. A white saloon is 1/3 of the cars in the county, and there is nothing on that recording that is against the law. A man drove slowly and talked to a woman. The thing that stayed with me isn't him, it's the road. She had gone the long way home that night, past the shop, over the big junction, under the lights, for precisely the same reason I did it every night of my working life. Because it's the bright one. Because it's the way with the one open door on it. And he was on it too. I don't know what to do with that, and I've never managed to make it mean nothing. I don't know how many nights he'd sat in that car park. I don't know whether anybody has ever come out of that shop and got in. Nobody is ever going to tell me. Nothing I did that night deserves a word as big as brave. I stood in front of a car for about 90 seconds and I asked somebody a question. But I've got the 4 words now. They stay in my coat pocket, all 4 of them, every walk home. Not "Are you okay?" That's no good. Anybody can answer that one for you, and the wrong person usually does. Not "Is everything all right?" because everything is always all right. Just, "Do you know him?" Asked to her, with my back to him, so there is exactly one person in the world who can answer it. I've used it twice since. Both times it was nothing, and both times I felt like an idiot for about a minute, and I would do it again tomorrow. Because the first time it wasn't nothing, and she was 400 yards into it before anybody thought to ask. And let's never meet. 3 nights, 3 streets, and none of them belong to the people who just told you about them. A man who crouched down on a pavement and asked the only person there who couldn't say no, 4 times, in the kindest voice you have ever heard. A man who sat in a car park for an hour and then spoke so quietly that a stranger had to walk over to hear him. And a man who did the whole thing in the middle of a lit road at 1 in the morning, because from 30 yards away it looked like a couple having a row, and a couple having a row is the one scene nobody on earth walks into. 3 refusals said out loud, 1 sentence about a parked car, 4 words at a crossing. That was the entire arsenal, and not one of the 3 of them ran. So before you close the tab, sit with a small, ugly question. Of those 3 nights, which one would you have stopped for? The kind man helping somebody who couldn't stand, the quiet man offering somebody a job, or the couple in the road arguing at 1 in the morning? And if you had stopped, what would you actually have said, and who would you have said it to? Because that turns out to be the whole of it, not whether you speak, who you speak to. Tell me in the comments, subscribe so the next one reaches you before you need it. And if something in the street ever has a name on it that makes it none of your business, ask the person it's supposed to be about. 4 words. Do you know him?